All right, everybody, welcome back into Cherry Picking. Today's video, we'll be looking at the Fantasy Hockey Mailbag for Week 17 of the season. You know, a little bit of an all-star break here, so about 5 days without any NHL games. So get to look at some of the questions we have from the last 3 videos that I've dropped, that being the must-drop video for Week 16, fantasy forwards to target before the trade deadline, and then fantasy defensemen to target before the trade deadline. So I'm going over some trades, some ad drop questions. I got 5 questions to get into. Let's get into the video. All right, so the first question we've got here is give Kyrou and Ehlers for Caulfield and Jarvis. Is that a good trade? I will say it's very similar looking at these 4 players, where their numbers are, where their ranks are in terms of fantasy hockey. All 4 of them inside the top 100 when it comes to fantasy hockey points scored. All of them have right around 15 goals scored at this point, and all right around the 35 to 40 point mark as well. But I think I'd give a little bit of an edge with Jarvis and Caulfield. Just looking at their last 2 months of play, they've started to create a lot of their own offense. You know, the Carolina Hurricanes are finally starting to win games and play a lot better. You know, their full offensive unit is getting a lot healthier too now. Necas is back from injury. Svechnikov is getting a lot healthier too. Even their defensemen are getting healthier too here. So I think we're going to see a better Carolina team and a better offense, which means a lot for Seth Jarvis, considering he's, you know, leads a lot, or top 5 on the team in Corsi 4, expected goals 4, and especially over the last 2 months. I talked about him in my forwards to target. He's been creating a ton of offense. And Cole Caulfield in the same light. I know he plays on Montreal, and their plus minus is going to get skewed, or won't be that great because he is on a Canadiens team, but he is their premier goal scorer, 17 goals on the season, and he's started, looking at his first 2 months to compare to his last 2 months, he started to create a lot more offense over the last 2 months since December 1st. He's top 35 in expected goals for. So is Seth Jarvis. Kyrou and Ehlers recently, you know, haven't been as good. The one player I would say Kyrou's maybe been a little bit better, because St. Louis went through a little bit of a hot streak there, and that top line is pretty solid on St. Louis. But overall, I think I'd rather have Seth Jarvis and Cole Caulfield. I think they produce more points. All right, the next question we have here, I feel like DeBrincat should be dropped. He's been very poor. Simply, you just can't drop this guy. I know in the month of January, he hasn't been as great. Just 5 points to show for it. Detroit going through a little bit of a dry spell, I would say, offensively. Maybe not as close to the All-Star break, but still overall not creating the same amount of offense we saw at the beginning of the season when their power play was electric and their whole team was playing really well. But you could have seen a little bit of regression coming, because their shooting percentage was one of the tops in the league, and they weren't creating enough offense to really make that consistent at that point. So DeBrincat, a guy who's scored at least 25 goals in pretty much every single one of his seasons. He's had 2 40-plus goal seasons as well. Now, with 18 goals on the season, is he going to finish with more than 40 goals? Probably not, but definitely I would say 30 to 35 plus at this point. You know, he's had 2 months of the season. We're looking at October, where he had 13 points, and December, where he had 17 points. So this is just one stretch we're seeing from Alex DeBrincat that's not that great. I think we'll see him kind of bounce back in the second half of the season as well. If you're trying to rely on goal scoring numbers from the month of October, it's just not really realistic. 28% shooting percentage in that month with 9 goals to show for it. I could see him consistently having maybe 5 goals a month for the rest of the season. Detroit has a relatively hard schedule, but when he plays on that top 2 lines, whether it be with Larkin, Patrick Kane, or Lucas Raymond, he's going to be able to find the back of the net. So definitely don't drop DeBrincat. You try to trade him if you want before your trade deadline, but I would just hold on to him. All right, the next question here. Drop Tage Thompson or Charlie Coyle or Clayton Keller or Brock Besser or Brady Tkachuk for Lucas Raymond in a points league. Absolutely not. I don't even think I would consider dropping any of those players that you listed for Lucas Raymond. You know, Tage Thompson, I know people have been really frustrated with him, but still, I think we're going to see a Buffalo team play a lot better in that second half of the season. They had a lot of injuries to deal with in the first half, one of them being Tage Thompson. Jeff Skinner couldn't really get going. We've seen some depth players kind of step up for some of the stars, you would say, in Tage Thompson, where their production has lacked. A guy like JJ Peterka has been playing really well. Charlie Coyle has been a stud recently, and if he continues to play in the top 6, you just can't let him go, and the top power play as well. Clayton Keller is maybe the only one I'd maybe consider, because Arizona has definitely taken a huge downturn since their relatively hot start, I would say. Besser and Brady Tkachuk, absolutely not. Lucas Raymond is inside the top 200 when it comes to fantasy hockey points scored, but outside top 150. You know, he gets a decent amount of assists. He doesn't score a ton of goals. He also doesn't shoot the puck a whole lot. So any of those 5 guys, I'd much rather have instead of Lucas Raymond. All right, the next question we have, and we had one question from one commenter and another question from another commenter that are very similar, both asking questions about Brandon Montour. I've definitely had a lot of questions about him recently and what to do. So the first one is, would you trade Brent Burns for Brandon Montour in a pure head-to-head points league? And then the other one, someone asked if I should trade Sean Durzi for Brandon Montour. So I would say I would not trade Brandon Montour at all. I would try to acquire him at this point, because I think we've seen him regress definitely a lot after coming back from injury this part of the season. But after what he did last year is just too hard to ignore. Even what he was doing in the playoffs, I think we'll see a much more inspired and a better Brandon Montour. The Florida Panthers are one of the best teams in the NHL, and Brandon Montour has been creating the offense to be able to produce points. He just hasn't been able to have a lot of success. He's gotten relatively unlucky, I would say. His shooting percentage this year is on an all-time low compared to his last couple seasons, less than 3% compared to last year where he had 70-plus points and 30-plus power play points as well. And if you look at his numbers amongst defensemen since December 1st, he's one of the best in terms of creating offense. Second in expected goals for, only behind Josh Morrissey. Fifth in shots on goal, and then second in individual scoring chances as well. So his analytics definitely show that. Since December 1st, his numbers are quite similar when you're looking at scoring chances created, quality scoring chances, shots on goal to Roman Josi. He probably has a little less in each category, but he had 18 less points than Roman Josi over that stretch since December 1st. Like I mentioned, analytics relatively the same, but Roman Josi outproduced him by 18 points. So I think we're going to see Brandon Montour's usage go up, where he starts to play just a lot more and a lot more comfortable in all these situations. And we'll see Brandon Montour have a big second half of the season. So definitely don't trade him away. If you could trade for him, I'd definitely do that. All right, and the last question that we're looking at: do you think Parise is worth picking up in deeper leagues? So Zach Parise just signed with the Colorado Avalanche. For those of you who don't know, a guy who played in the NHL for years, played for the New Jersey Devils, played for the Minnesota Wild as well. My first kind of reaction to this question: no, I would not try to pick up Zach Parise right now. Even if you're in deeper leagues, there are better options out there that are actually playing hockey. Like, he still has yet to play a game of hockey. So I think it's a complete wait and see thing. But if you're looking at other centers and even other forwards on the Colorado Avalanche this season, like, really the only fantasy viable ones are playing with Nathan MacKinnon and Mikko Rantanen most of the time. You're looking at Jonathan Drouin has definitely had more of a resurgence over the last month and a half, I would say. Valeri Nichushkin when he's healthy, Artturi Lehkonen. But Artturi Lehkonen had a really good start to the season when he was playing on that top line with MacKinnon or Rantanen. Same with Nichushkin. When Nichushkin's fully healthy, he's playing with MacKinnon and Rantanen most of the time and scoring at will pretty much. And then same with Jonathan Drouin. So unless Parise is playing with MacKinnon and Rantanen on a regular basis, I wouldn't really consider him fantasy viable, because if you look at a guy like Ryan Johansson, pretty much a very similar position as Zach Parise at this point. I think he's, if anything, a little bit younger, but Zach Parise would fit into that second, third line center role probably, or somewhere on those second or third lines. And I don't think he'd be able to produce, because Ryan Johansson at this point, he's like 430th ranked in fantasy hockey points scored. And then Ross Colton is like top 250 or something like that. So in really deep leagues, like 18 to 20 man, you can consider picking him up and maybe take a risk on him. But if anything, he's not going anywhere on the waiver wire right now. So I would just kind of wait and see what he does on this Colorado Avalanche team. All right, thank you guys for tuning in to the Fantasy Hockey Mailbag for Week 17. Let me know if you have any other questions. I'll be doing another one of these next week, so drop those comments below and I will answer as many questions as possible. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video.